In the sun-scorched plains of Uzbekistan, a land of stark beauty and unforgiving climate, a child named Timur was born in 1336. His arrival was quiet, unassuming, yet destined to echo through the ages. The world into which he was born was a patchwork of empires, a tapestry woven with threads of ambition and conflict. It was a time of constant chaos, but also brimming with opportunity for those bold enough to seize it. Timur was not born into royalty, nor did he inherit a life of privilege. Instead, he came from a minor Turco-Mongol tribe, a people hardened by the elements and steeped in the traditions of nomadic warfare. Yet, within this seemingly ordinary boy, something extraordinary lay dormant, waiting to be awakened. An unyielding ambition stirred within him, a hunger for power and a vision of a world remade. His world, the fractured Chagatai Khanate, was a volatile land where power was seized through strength and cunning, not merely inherited through bloodlines. From a young age, Timur learned the harsh lessons of survival, mastering the arts of horsemanship and combat. He quickly understood that in this world, cunning and ruthlessness were often the only paths to success. The unforgiving landscape and the brutal realities of political intrigue forged him into a force of nature, a storm gathering on the horizon. Was it destiny, a predetermined path laid out before him? Was it merely circumstance, the product of his environment, or was it the conscious choice of a man determined to shape his own fate? For Timur, it was a potent combination of all three, a confluence of factors that propelled him forward. He possessed not only a brilliant military mind, capable of dissecting complex strategies and anticipating his enemy's moves, but also an unshakable will of iron, an unbreakable determination that allowed him to overcome any obstacle. He looked upon the world not as it passively existed, fragmented and divided, but as it could be, as it be. A unified realm, brought together and governed under his singular absolute rule. His grand vision was forged, not in the halls of kings, but in the harsh realities, the dust and blood of his tumultuous youth. Timur began his ascent as a relatively minor noble, a figure of little consequence on the grand stage of history. Some whispered that he was little more than a glorified sheep rustler, a bandit preying on the weak. He started by leading a small, ragtag band of warriors, men bound to him by loyalty and the promise of plunder. But even then, his gaze was always fixed firmly on the distant horizon, beyond the petty squabbles and tribal rivalries. He was haunted by the towering legacy of conquerors who had come before him, men like Genghis Khan, whose names echoed through the ages. The universe, it seems, has a peculiar way of occasionally producing such figures, individuals driven by an insatiable hunger for power and glory. These are the individuals who, through sheer force of will, bend the course of history to their own designs, leaving an indelible mark on the world. And now, Timur was poised to begin his own epic journey, a path that would lead him to both unimaginable triumphs and devastating tragedies. The world, whether it was ready or not, would soon come to know his name, to tremble at his approach, and to marvel at his achievements. And after Timur's rise, history itself would never, ever be quite the same again. Power is a ladder. Some are born at the top, cradled in privilege and assured of their place. They inherit influence, wealth, and authority without ever having to truly strive for it. Others climb, rung by bloody rung, clawing their way up through hardship and conflict. Each step forward is a battle won, a sacrifice made, a price paid in blood and sweat. Timur's ascent was marked by ruthless ambition, a hunger for power that consumed everything in its path. It was also defined by a crippling injury sustained in battle, a wound that would forever alter his path. His limp, instead of being perceived as a weakness, a vulnerability to be exploited, became a symbol of resilience, a testament to his unwavering will and refusal to be defeated. He skillfully played local warlords against each other, manipulating their desires and exploiting their rivalries to his advantage. He was a master of both diplomacy and betrayal, knowing when to offer a hand in friendship and when to plunge a dagger into the back. Alliances were forged with elaborate ceremony, only to be broken with cold calculation when they no longer served his purpose. He understood the power of gold, and he freely bought and sold loyalty, amassing a formidable army of mercenaries and opportunists. Timur built his reputation not only as a brilliant strategist, but also as a fearsome commander, leading his troops from the front lines. He was known as a leader whose vengeance was certain, swift, and merciless, instilling fear in the hearts of his enemies. He gazed upon the fractured Chagatai Khanate, a land ripe for conquest, and saw it as his for the taking, a prize waiting to be claimed by his ambition. Followers flocked to him from far and wide, drawn to his banner like moths to a flame. They were drawn by his charisma, his promise of glory, and the irresistible lure of plunder and riches beyond their wildest dreams. He promised order and stability to a land ravaged by chaos and infighting, but it was order enforced under his absolute rule. A reign of iron where dissent was crushed without mercy. The final and perhaps most dangerous obstacle standing in his path was his ally and brother-in-law, the powerful and influential Amir Hussein, a man who had once been his closest confidant. In a move that shocked even his most hardened followers, Timur turned on Hussein, laying siege to his city and shattering their alliance. He broke his solemn promise of safe passage, a betrayal that sealed Hussein's fate and cemented Timur's reputation for treachery. Hussein was captured and swiftly executed, his head rolling before the man he once trusted. With his rival eliminated, Timur became the undisputed ruler of the Chagatai Khanate in 1370, seizing the throne and consolidating his power. The limping shadow, once a mere warrior with a crippling injury, had finally reached the top of the mountain. His reign of terror, a period of unprecedented conquest and brutality, was about to begin, casting a long and dark shadow across the world. The world, unaware of the storm that was brewing, would soon tremble before the might of Timur. Timur's ambition knew no bounds, and the lands stretching before him were merely the first steps on his path to world domination. Every conqueror needs a legend. Timur, not a direct descendant of Genghis Khan, could not claim the title of Khan, but he was a master of propaganda. If he couldn't inherit the legacy, he would appropriate it. He married into Genghis's line, called himself Amir, and styled himself the Sword of Islam. This dual identity let him appeal to Mongol warriors and Muslim subjects. Timur amplified the terror of Genghis, using fear as his signature weapon. He wanted his name to paralyze enemies before his armies arrived. By invoking the Mongol horde, he unleashed a force unseen for a century. Timur was not just a conqueror, he was a psychological storm. The new Genghis was here, and he was far more brutal. To rule through fear, to truly dominate and instill unwavering obedience, one must provide a lesson, a stark, unforgettable demonstration of the consequences of defiance. Timur, also known as Tamerlane, understood this principle intimately and was a master of such brutal lessons. When a rival chieftain dared to challenge his authority, testing the limits of his power, Timur didn't just punish, he orchestrated theatrical brutality, a spectacle designed to terrify. The chieftain was stripped of his dignity and publicly humiliated, paraded before his former followers in chains. He was then thrown alive to ravenous, savage dogs, a gruesome end for all to witness. His agonizing death was not just an execution, it was a carefully crafted warning to all who might consider rebellion. Defiance would be met not just with death, but with unimaginable horror. This was not justice, not by any stretch of the definition, but calculated psychological warfare, a tool to break the spirit of his enemies. Timur's cruelty knew no limits. He was unbound by conventional morality. No taboo was too great, no act too depraved in his relentless pursuit of absolute control. Stories of this act and others like it spread like wildfire across the land, planting seeds of terror in even the most distant cities and fortified towns. Before his formidable armies even arrived at their gates, his terrifying reputation had already done much of the work of conquest. Why resist a man who would not just kill you swiftly in battle, but utterly unmake you, body and soul? The fear of a terrible, drawn-out death became his most powerful and effective weapon. Timur understood, with chilling clarity, that terror could conquer even where the most seasoned and well-equipped armies might ultimately fail. His legend grew with each brutal act, fueled by the rivers of blood he spilled and the pervasive, paralyzing fear he inspired. The world, from the smallest village to the grandest kingdom, learned to dread his very name. And his message, delivered in blood and terror, was chillingly clear. Submit, without question or hesitation, or suffer a fate beyond the limits of human imagination. With Central Asia secure, Timur unleashed 35 years of relentless conquest. He saw himself as the scourge of God, punishing weak rulers. His armies swept across Persia, the Caucasus, Mesopotamia, and the Golden Horde. He defeated the Ottomans, the Mamluks, and even European knights. His military genius was matched only by his brutality. Surrender and you might be spared. Resist and face annihilation. Terror was his deliberate strategy, ordered from the top. After conquest, artisans and scholars were sent to beautify Samarkand. The rest were expendable. Systematic slaughter eliminated rebellion and sent a chilling message. Historians estimate up to 17 million deaths, 5% of the world's population. Ancient cities became wastelands, irrigation systems destroyed, civilizations erased. Timur reshaped the world, not by building, but by destroying. His legacy was written in blood and ashes. The world trembled at his approach, and no one was safe from his wrath. In 1398, Timur set his sights on the wealth of India. The Sultanate of Delhi was weak, and Timur crossed the Hindu Kush to strike. Cities fell, populations slaughtered, but Delhi was the ultimate prize. Fearing revolt, Timur ordered the execution of over 100,000 Hindu prisoners in a single day. This massacre was a prelude to the sack of Delhi. After defeating the Sultan's army, Timur's forces rampaged through the city. For days, Delhi was consumed by killing, looting, and fire. Tens of thousands were enslaved and marched to Samarkand. The city was left a smoldering ruin, haunted by death. Timur showed no remorse, viewing the massacre as righteous. For him, Delhi's river of blood was proof of his power. For the world, it was a new low in human cruelty. The horror of Delhi would echo for centuries. If Delhi was a river of tears, Baghdad became a monument to horror. In 1401, Timur besieged the ancient city, determined to make an example. When Baghdad fell, he ordered each of his 90,000 soldiers to bring a severed head. The city's population was systematically hunted and beheaded. Men, women, and children were slaughtered without mercy. Timur's soldiers built towers from the skulls of their victims, 120 of them. These grotesque monuments warned all who approached. Baghdad, once a center of learning, was reduced to rubble. Its libraries burned, its scholars murdered, its beauty erased. Only artisans were spared, destined for servitude in Samarkand. Timur had not just conquered, he had tried to erase Baghdad from existence. The skull towers became the enduring symbol of his reign. Fear was now architecture. Here lies Timur's great contradiction. The destroyer of cities was also a patron of the arts. As his armies razed capitals, Samarkand became a paradise. He poured plundered wealth into making it the pearl of the East. Artisans and scholars built majestic mosques, palaces, and the Grand Registan Square. Every beautiful tile was a reminder of a city sacked. Timur was intimately involved, building his legacy in stone and tile. Samarkand reflected his power and ego, its beauty inseparable from his brutality. He was a barbarian with exquisite taste, a civilizer on a foundation of bones. This duality defies simple labels, hero or villain, builder or destroyer. Timur could discuss poetry, then order a tower of skulls. Creation and destruction sprang from the same heart. His paradox is perhaps the most terrifying thing about him. In 1405, Timur prepared for his grandest campaign, China. But fate intervened. He fell ill and died in his tent, ambition unfulfilled. His empire, built on fear, crumbled soon after. In Uzbekistan, he's revered as a national hero, the father of the nation. Statues and currency bear his image. His massacres are downplayed. Elsewhere, he's remembered as a tyrant, the butcher of Baghdad, the destroyer of cities. For millions, his legacy is violence, not vision. Was Timur a visionary or a monster? Perhaps he was both. He exceeded the brutality of his age, shocking us even now. His story is a reminder of the human capacity for both beauty and horror. Whether hero or monster, his name echoes with terror. The world cannot forget him, and history will always remember the chilling depths of his ambition.